I'm Zach and I play guitar for Arabesque.
I'm Randy, I play drums.
Hi, I'm Rin, I play bass.
I'm Evan, I do vocals.
Prelude to a Funeral, to me, is a beginning. It's the first chapter in what we have deemed the Porcelain Serpent saga, and it is a story, it's a very dynamic story that talks about a lot of human emotions and their intertwining themes throughout life in general, and this song was the beginning to all of that. It was the first chapter in the book that we have deemed the Porcelain Serpent saga.
Prelude is the first song that we all together, every member, worked on in the band, and we went through a whole lot of stuff to get that song recorded.
It was pretty challenging. Out of all the songs that I learned when I first joined the band, that was probably the hardest to pick up on. Going from playing mostly jazz, it was pretty difficult to get used to the sweeps and all the fancy stuff.
Prelude to a Funeral is the first track that we came together as a band and decided this is going to be the direction that we go. It also doubles as somewhat of a prologue to the whole Porcelain Serpent saga that we set out to start writing. Conceptually, the song, it's pretty depressing. It's about some very dark themes, dealing with self-harm and suicidal tendencies. So musically, we set out to make sure that it reflected that. We wanted the song to be melancholy, but also abrasive.
Well, we did part of it at Concrete Studios in Louisiana with Jonathan, and then we drove all the way to Texas to do everything else, the guitars, drums, all that good stuff.
Which was a blast. It was a lot of fun to do with them over there. It was a nice change of scenery, a change of pace, and really helped make it feel like we were getting out there and making a song that was going to be heard by people.
So when we got there, I remember my first thought when walking in the studio was how it was kind of an apartment in like a complex, and that surprised me because I was like, whoa, you know, this we were gonna start screaming in this apartment complex.
Said when you find my wristlet with me dead on my bed! Sweet.
But it worked really well. So Zach did a bunch of his takes first, and since I had a lot more to do, I went in after him and I started doing a bunch of my takes. But overall, he was very accommodating, and I thought it was an exceptionally fun experience.
Really, I thought Prelude was going to be a big turning point in this band because it was like pretty different from everything we put out before, and it ended up being a pretty big turning point. Like, our sound changed a lot after that.
I had a lot of thoughts on recording it. A lot of thoughts of, is this the direction we want to go? Is this the sound that I want? And ultimately, after all of that was said and done, I'm really excited about the product. I'm really proud to present it to people.
So we had to drive like 6 hours there, and like by the time we got there, you know, we had to get up so early to make the drive. I know most of us were really tired, so you know, Randy crashed and started sleeping, whereas me and Zach got right into recording. We got right into the moment of it. A lot of it was just Zach having to record the guitar and bass since Rin wasn't with us just yet for this song. It was up to Zach to record most of the bass. He has to record all the guitar. What I primarily oversaw, since we had the vocals sent over from Jonathan at Concrete, was I made sure all the samples came through the way I wanted them. I made sure that the song was structured out the specific way that I wanted it. I wanted all the levels mixed correctly. So that was what it was like for me most of the time. But it was a lot of fun, and we just kind of joked around and took care of business while we were there.
It definitely brings in the story and kind of sets the tone for Bloodsnake pretty well. Gives everybody a little like snippet on what was to be expected once Bloodsnake came out, and gave everybody a taste of like the new direction that the band seemed to be taking at the time.
Prelude ended up being my favorite song for a while, like not even just from the band, but like just favorite song in general. So yeah, I hold it dear to my heart, I guess.
For me, it's one of my favorite songs to play live. It's a big tonal shift. It's in a different tuning than a lot of the other stuff is, so we're required to change instruments there. It's a nice period to kind of wrap the show up as a whole.
Looking back on it, I think I've developed more of a fondness for it now. I always loved the song, but right when we finished it, there was a little bit of a negative energy around the song with me because of the circumstances that went into recording it and the circumstances that went into the writing process of it. It kind of had me feeling down about it, but after we started playing it on stage and after I got to hear the final product, I was really caught off guard by how much I ended up loving it. So I look back on it now with much more fondness than I did upon when we initially began writing it, and I think there's something really beautiful about that. Bloodsnake to me is the realization of all the concepts that we began with Prelude to a Funeral. So the topics and the themes that we implied in the first song of Prelude, we pulled out into its own full EP. So Bloodsnake is 5 songs, one of them is an instrumental and the other 4 are fully realized tracks.
It's an experience, it's a dive into the mind of a human, and it's the thoughts and the emotions we deal with as people and what it is and what's required to overcome some of these emotions and to face them head on.
So I kind of related with the message of Bloodsnake, especially after the band took the time to just explain to me what the story was through the album. As someone that suffered with depression and things like that myself, it really spoke to me, and I mean, it was a big driving force on why I decided to join the band.
It's a heavy-hitting message. About being yourself in the midst of everything.
It was a great process to record the music, to record the demos for the music, what should I say, to write it all. It was a collaborative effort between his lyrics and a lot of his musicality, and same with mine. We went back and forth on simple things like the meaning of a song title and what it should evoke inside of a person, the emotions that we were trying to pull out, down to a snare placement.
I can remember the time, like whenever we began talking about Bloodsnake. It was me and Zach, and we were walking down the road. It was nighttime because we were just kind of walking and hanging out and talking about what we were going to do with the band. We were still writing Prelude at the time, and we were talking about writing Prelude, and I remember we kind of came to the conclusion, we've got to do an EP. We've got to do some kind of EP to really solidify ourselves as a band and to get that sound out there. So we started immediately writing from that moment when we were just walking down the side of the road at night.
There was a lot of bickering, there was a lot of really ecstatic moments where we thought we had come up with something that was really good, and to this day it was a process that I'll probably remember for the rest of my life and look back on with fondness.
And I remember probably a couple of months after that, I was in the car and I was driving, and that title hit me. And I realized, I conceptualized this creature, this being as a metaphor, this kind of snake that feeds from people's own energy. And a lot of that comes because I have a really intense fear of snakes. I've had a lot of nightmares about snakes. They scare me to death. So I think that fear of snakes worked its way into this EP and how abrasive it is. And that's when I realized I'd really come up with something, and I knew that's the direction I wanted to take it. So I sat down with Zach and I elaborated to him what I was trying to get at. And I remember he was like, he agreed with me, and he was like, I think we have something here that we can really work with.
My favorite song on Bloodsnake might be Anencephaly, from the sheer emotion that goes into it, because it is gloves off, almost a call-out track, and it is just very violent's a word, I would say, but that's not the exact emotion that I'm trying to pull out here. It's very raw, and it was very to the point without playing around. No tip and toe and around the bush. It was very straight to the point what we were trying to say. And that was fun because a lot of times we're very symbolic and we're very, and this song was very symbolic, but it was symbolic in more so of a way that was kind of for us.
I would have to say Anaccephaly. It's just so angry. I love it. I don't know. It's one of the songs that I can especially playing live, I can get into, and I like that we kind of throw it in pretty early in the set, or at least the set we're playing now. It sets a good tone for the rest of the show, gets everybody's energy up, and the music video for it's pretty awesome.
I got two favorites. Antisocial, just because it's a big FU, and Skin Show, because I think that song really shows like what all we can do. It's got heavy, it's got clean singing, catchy chorus, like good instrumentals. I think it's like if you had to pick a song, be like, what's Arabesque about? You can show somebody Skin Show.
I love all of the songs, but I do have one that definitely stands out to me, and it's the first track, Antisocial. So all of the songs have their own specific message to send, but the message of Antisocial is so close to me. It comes in with this immediate atmospheric tension, and it opens up into a thick breakdown, and it never lets up after that. You don't get a break from that song really until the end of it. And its intensity and its message about basically being yourself and going against the grain of society, it resonates with me on a level that I haven't been able to see in any other song I've ever written. And I think that will probably be true for a long time to come. Antisocial holds a very special place in my heart because of that.
So recording the music is one of my favorite processes. Unfortunately here we have a lot of latency issues. It's just very taxing on a machine to try to pull up these million sound effects we're playing in the background, a bunch of different takes of guitar and bass. It's taxing on the computer. So going to an actual studio with Ghost Kids Collective, where we were able to sit down, record with little to no effort, was an amazing experience. It was very clean, it was very lovely environment, and it was very easy to get our ideas across in a very timely manner.
I remember being caught way off guard when we actually ended up getting to Georgia, because it was such a nice place. Everything we've done in this band has been kind of a grind. It's been definitely, keep your head low, get the work done. It's very dirty work, not physically, but like mentally. So getting to Georgia and seeing how nice of a place it was and how accommodating Lee was to us was very surprising to me, to say the least.
So there was a lot of things that went into recording just us here at the house that I thought was pretty normal. Then we went to the Ghost Kids Collective, and it was a very clean experience.
I know we were there for 3 days total. We went in there, and Zach just probably for 8 to 9 hours, all 3 days in a row, we grinded. Zach started grinding out the guitar, and once again, he was on bass duty because it would still be another couple months before we managed to get Ren on board with us. So Zach pulled double duty, recording bass and recording guitar. Obviously, we put our heads down for the drums, and then I tracked out all of the vocals, I think, in 2 days, but most of them were done in 1 day. We only did one song the second day, and we did all the other songs the third day. And Zach, of course, had to pull triple duty there because he had to record some vocals for that. All in all, it was same as always for us. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of keeping your head down in the dirt, but it came out to be a very pleasant experience, and I don't think I would change anything about it.
This whole album was like a big step out of my comfort zone. Most of my background is classical and jazz, so jumping into like this really like riffy breakdown kind of music was new but fun, and I picked up on it pretty easy. It's definitely not my background, but I'm able to get into it pretty good and enjoy playing it a lot. It's super fun.
So while we were recording in the studio, I was really excited because I had heard these songs for so long in, a demo capacity, and to hear them start being realized and the emotions that we were pulling out from it and the look on the face of the producer and how excited he was helped to bolster our confidence more, and it was all in all just a a nice realization of what we had been working on for this whole period.
You know, when we got the final product back, I would look over it and I would send them some messages back to Lee, and we would tweak and alter what we needed to. But whenever the things were settled, I think the product was what it needed to be.
I Want You, that track to me is basically like an advertisement as to what's about to come from us, and it being such a short song, like you wouldn't think a whole lot went into it, but I was literally like sending Evan videos of me playing beats on my knees and stuff, so to be like, oh yeah, this part's gonna go like this and blah blah blah, and sending him videos of me playing drums.
I Want You was the first song that I was actually able to be part of and like watch the process of. I joined the band after the previous songs were written and recorded, so I wasn't really involved in the process for that, but it was super fun to have, you know, especially like it was a little bit of a taste. I'm not super like songwriting, so it was nice to kind of dip my foot in with that little snippet. It was like a lot of fun to get used to the process with everybody.
It was conceptualized as the first track of what was considered to be maybe another like shorter, more ambient EP to follow up Bloodsnake, but we kind of annexed that really quickly as we realized that that's not the direction we wanted to go, because we didn't need another EP. What we needed was an epilogue. You know, as a writer, I looked at the story and I realized we had this beginning, this prologue with Prelude to a Funeral, and then we had this story, we had this meat. What we needed was a resolution. What we needed was an epilogue. So we went into I Want You with the idea that we had to close this story out on the way that it deserved. And that's whenever we came up with the idea to hone in on this one particular track as a short little epilogue to finish the story.
It was an experiment in a way. There's a lot of ambience in it, and there's a lot of soundscaping. It opens with a pretty heavy breakdown, and that is to help tail end off of the album and then lead out into a very mysterious, kind of vague ending with the soundscapes and what comes after this. And it doesn't sound quite like it's the end, and that was done for a purpose. It's because there is a book coming out, a novella, in the summer that will help wrap the entire thing up, and it will show you in a literary sense where our heads have been throughout this whole process.
It was an experiment more than anything else to see what we could do to, you know, sharpen our teeth for what we're getting ready to work on. And this epilogue to the story ended up being exactly what it needed to be.
We have a bunch of really cool, really like surreal looking pictures, but I have to say that my favorite is the anime pictures that we had commissioned. I'm a little bit of an anime dork myself, so the fact of seeing me personified as a cartoon character and the rest of the band, I thought it was the most adorable thing ever, and I hope we do more with that picture, honestly.
The artwork in general is a visual representation of the ideas of a song. Each song we had artwork commissioned specifically for, and a lot of them have come from amazing artists who are lovely to work with, and they represent what the song's lyrics say in a single picture.
Alright, the anencephaly artwork is probably my favorite, just because what I was told it means. I really like that. I'm not going to say it here, but it's got a meaning within the band.
It's not easy to look at, some of it, and it's designed that way. It's not to be graphic, but it's to realize the idea of the song in its complete realistic version. So some of the artwork is a bit intense, and we've had some fights with Facebook over allowing them to sell them in our marketplace, so Mark Zuckerberg himself thinks it's maybe a little bit too intense. But the idea wasn't to just be intense, it was to realize the vision of the lyrics in a honest way. I think my favorite piece of artwork would have to be one that came before the Bloodsnake era, though, in a design that we deemed the Love design. It was the first piece of artwork we had from Pharaoh Loboa, our consistent artist that we work with. Amazing guy, super fun. Have video chats with him pretty regularly to discuss the ideas. He's a wonderful artist and a great person to work with. And he has been able to help us realize the visuals for some of these songs in a way that I didn't know was possible until I saw it.
Out of all of the pieces from those 4 specific songs, I think my favorite would have to be the Bloodsnake piece. Even though Antisocial is my favorite song, the amount of emotion packed into the Bloodsnake piece and the amount of tension that one can pull out of that one image speaks to me. I think that's my favorite piece out of all of them. So after Pharaoh and I came together to make the decision that we were going to do each song its own piece, we obviously started with the first song, Antisocial. And we knew that it needed to reflect the lyrics in a big way because each art piece was going to be its own visual manifestation of the song's meaning. So with Antisocial, the song's meaning is obviously very aggressively targeted towards the idea of conformity. So when I was writing the lyrics, I kind of came up with this hypothetical punching bag of a person who just was the most default template conforming person you can imagine. You know, the kind of person who goes with every trend, goes with every crowd, walks into a room and starts trying to laugh at whatever everybody else is laughing at and agrees with everything. The kind of person who does not have their own personality. I pictured a person like that, and I kind of used them as a punching bag, and I just wrote all those lyrics out. And whenever I was talking to Pharaoh about the way that I wanted to bring this song to life visually, I came up with the idea of a mannequin. You know, the most template, basic human thing that you can think of. It's anthropomorphic, but it looks almost exactly like a human. And I talked to him about severing the mannequin at the arms, at the wrists, everywhere, and putting ropes through it, and then hanging it from the ceiling like a puppet. So the implication is that there's this puppet master above it that's pulling the strings and moving this mannequin around. And that's where the antisocial artwork comes into play to display this type of conforming person as a puppet being moved around by strings.
To me, the art is a visual representation of conformity and individuality and the resulting toxic effects. In a way, this art kind of showcases a specific set of emotions and or a state of mind of somebody who, you know, has succumbed to this. And, you know, to me that meaning is very deep. I think a lot of people can relate to that because I think in one way or another, somebody has either conformed or on the opposing been ridiculed for their individuality.
For the skin show piece, that's the only piece of art in the whole album that I did not come up with. Every piece related to the Bloodsnake album in specific was my idea except for the skin show piece. As Pharaoh and I were working on the lyrics, he drew up this design of this person on a cross because he was looking over all the lyrics that I had written. He said, "This is the idea I got from these and I wanted to show it to you." So this person was on a cross and he had these long slits down his wrists and there were hands reaching up from the smoke, hundreds of hands, and there was this word scrawled across his chest that said different. So Skin Show, moving on from Antisocial, had the same themes of nonconformity, of being different, and that's the way the artwork kind of explains and elaborates on that. It manifests itself as a metaphorical crucifixion. You know, when you refuse to conform, you become different, so much to the fact that society decides they have to crucify you.
Working with Evan was great. Him and I got along right away. You know, we both have the same taste in music. We both have an extreme passion for what we do. And we have the same visual aesthetic, which actually made the collaborations and doing the art a lot easier. You know, he would message me and say, "Hey, I got an idea for for this and that, and I'd just be like, say no more, I got it. And sure enough, it was exactly what he was looking for. Very few revisions, which just goes to show how much our visions were the same.
The artwork for Blood Snake I came up with when I was sitting and I was looking at the lyrics. Months after I'd already written the lyrics and we had already begun writing the song, I was looking at the lyrics, and I had this image pop into my head of this girl. And she was, she was on her knees and she had her arms pulled away and she had, cuts on her arms. And there was this thing behind her, this kind of Grim Reaper-esque cloaked figure looming over her, literally sucking the blood out of her wrists. And it was the way that I saw the lyrics of Blood Snake, because that song is about the consequence of death. It's about the way people seem to not be there for someone who's trying to be different and be themselves. They lash out and they try to crucify them until they push them to the point of suicide. Then all of a sudden, oh, gone too soon, rest in peace. I wish they had spoken out. I wish I was there for them. That song manifests itself to display those kinds of people as this Reaper-esque figure that literally sucked the life out of this person who was just trying to be different. And this person in this artwork was a realization of a girl with her wrists slit.
Yeah, as most artists say, they can't really choose a favorite piece. But if I had to choose one, it would probably be the man that's being overwhelmed by all the snakes. His face just shows like a lot of anguish and emotion, and the snakes just represent this toxicity that he's just being overwhelmed with. And a lot of the pieces, like I said, are like that. They all symbolize something similar, but that one I think invokes the most emotion.
The artwork for Anencephaly is significantly more on the nose. That is easily the most mean song that I think we've ever written. And the song has a strong nature of calling out specific people that we knew, as well as doubling as continuing the same motto of the rest of the EP of nonconformity, of being different and the consequences of one's actions. And pulling back the same kind of representation of a metaphorical punching bag. I took this same kind of puppet-esque figure and I put them on the knees and I surrounded them by snakes. The snakes in this album always ended up representing a form of culture, a form of society. And I took all of these snakes and I told Pharaoh, I don't remember what I said exactly, but this is kind of paraphrasing what I told Pharaoh. I told him I wanted this person that I saw as just conforming to any whim of anybody around them on their knees, holding these snakes in their hands like this, with these snakes going down their throat in kind of what one would see as a crass fashion and very similar to pornographic imagery.
I love the music. Evan had me listen to it quite quickly when we started working together. I already love metal and rock, so this was right up there with it. But then he had me look over some of the lyrics, and that's where I really started to appreciate what he was doing. There was a lot of deep meaning to it, and you can tell the band put a lot of hard work and passion into it. And I think my art represents it very well, because in a way I kind of do the same thing. I convey strong emotion through the art that I do, and they do the same. They invoke a lot of emotion through the music that they do. So I think my art represents it perfectly, both visually and the meaning behind it.
All right, Skin Show was probably our biggest video in my opinion. Like we went crazy on that one. Like we had a warehouse, we had people swinging from hooks. It was just like, it didn't cost us really nothing, but it felt like a big production.
We kept joking about like extra things to put in the music video because of all the weird props that were at the place that we were filming. And I brought it up since I did suspension with some of my friends and different performers, that since it was called Skin Show, why don't we throw some hookers in there? Not actual hookers, we don't condone that, I don't know. But
So I think the meaning behind Skin Show and the imagery that we brought to light with the video was displaying the human psyche in a very vulnerable way. It was having the people swinging from hooks, which is in itself hard to watch. And that was part of the idea, is that being a person is vulnerable and scary and it's not easy at all times. And so the video, I in my opinion, I believe that it expressed that very well. It was a whole lot of fun to shoot. It was a lot of work. It was a big open warehouse that before we spent hours that night cleaning and just having fun and talking over ideas. And it's a prop warehouse that Ren, the bass player, works at. And there were so many just things. I was joking around, we can use this, we can do that. And then the ideas of, well, she does with the NOLA suspension a lot of suspending. And well, I thought to myself, we're in New Orleans, is it possible to get them down here tomorrow if they're not busy? And turns out it all worked out. And so we were able to incorporate that element into that video that I think is the focal point of the video. And I think that it happened in a natural way, and it happened in a sense, it was what really helped pull the entire idea together for a visual sense.
From the beginning, we knew we were going to do 2 music videos for the EP. We had 5 songs, and we were going to do a music video for Skin Show and for Anencephaly. We spent some time deliberating on what exactly the music video for Skin Show was going to be. We had multiple different ideas that we could do, but what we ultimately settled on was just focus on the band. And the reason for that is because, through all the artwork and through the songs, we don't, show up as much, so we wanted to let the show's expression come from how we represented it, playing it, and, from our own physicality. So that's what we went through in mind, and I had a little script written out for us on what it was going to be, and we were going to focus it on the editing and on the performance. However, whenever we got on set and we had cleaned out the warehouse, Rin, perhaps jokingly, suggested she call her suspension friends and that they hang from hooks and swung around for the video. And immediately it clicked in my head. That was the answer. It represented everything. Hanging from hooks, the swinging from the ceiling as if they were literally on display, skin to show. Nothing more than corpses of meat. And that embodied the concept of, being crucified in such a different and unique way that I was on board so fast. And it was pretty inspiring how quickly we threw it together.
Yeah, there were multiple takes of certain key scenes. I remember there's a guitar spin I do. We did that take upwards of 10 times just because one take it would grab my hair and look funny, and another take it wasn't exactly right, and so that was a lot of fun getting some rope burn around my neck.
It's time consuming. We played Skin Show so much, like I could tell you how to play that song right now. I played it so much in that one day.
it was a really long day and it was really hard, but I did learn how to drive a forklift because of it, so,
Skin Show was a very interesting shoot because, we had an empty warehouse, we had a big space that we could use, and I hadn't really done that sort of work before. See, mostly I work on narrative films and documentary stuff where everything is pretty tightly controlled. We set up a nice ring lighting setup around the band members, and I had my gimbal, my Ronin, and we basically shot the entire thing, take after take after take, playing through the song, floating with me around Randy, Ren, doing all our individuals, doing a big group shot. The big surprise was Ren and her NOLA suspension people who came in and they did a awesome job for us doing their stunt work with the hanging from their hooks.
It was a long day, but it was super fun because it was a chance for me to kind of blend two of my worlds. I got to introduce the band to all of my suspension friends who I've known for like 10 plus years. So it was really cool melding those two worlds for me.
Whenever we had gotten everything set up, which took plenty of time in and of itself, and we had Andrew on the camera and we had all the lights set up, it was take after take after take. You know, we played the song probably somewhere between 35 to 50 times, and each time, you know, we had to just be so energetic. We had to jump around and throw the mic around, and poor Zach had to throw a guitar around his neck like 15 times. It was very tiring.
Yeah, it's always awkward when you play your music and you have a camera right in your face. And it's a weird realization to think, oh, I need to look cool, but also I need to kind of realistically play the song, and I need to... All that starts to fade away after the first few takes, and you start to enjoy being in the moment. And so for me, it was a lot of nervousness at first. It was a lot of apprehension while we were setting everything up, and then after about 3 takes in, I was lost in the music, having a great time.
Following them and trying to frame them appropriately, and you know, showing the detail that Evan wanted to show with that video, and I really like how it came out with Evan's editing, and that was just a new experience for me because I didn't even know that was a thing before we did Skin Show, so that was probably one of my favorite shoots with Arabesque, certainly.
Whenever we woke up to the time we finished, I think was between 12 to 14 hours of just setup and filming on one day. And that's not even counting the day before where we spent the entire time just doing setup and setting up the stage.
Filming itself took, I'd like to say, about 12 hours. We got out of there pretty late, but the whole process took probably weeks because Evan was editing it and Andrew was there helping, all that good stuff.
In the film industry, we are no strangers to long days and working with actors. Working with the band was a real pleasure. I've known Evan since I was at Pearl River Community College about 4 years ago, and we hit off a good relationship from there. And working on that with Skin Show, it was a good showing for the band.
It was a very exhausting and long process, but the product we ended up with was satisfying.
With Skin Show, it was once we got the lighting set up, I had the band very strongly backlit with a 2,000 watt LED behind, a 1K in front, and two 500 watt LEDs on the side. Evan wanted everything to be very free flowing, very lively in terms of camera movement. That's why I brought my gimbal with me. And because of that, I was able to freely float between band members and give really dynamic camera shots on everybody. I especially like working around Randy's drum kit. I usually run a very wide-angle lens because I like how it distorts people's faces, makes everybody look very very stretched out and very weird, and it really fits, I think, the aesthetic of what Arabesque is going for. And it's just, you know, I do my best to let the camera show the energy of the band.
Underline it. Perfect. You can match right under the wall. That's fine. So whenever we were coming up on the time to begin planning for filming and the Anencephaly music video, we only knew two things for sure. The first thing was we weren't going to be performing as a band in the music video. And the second thing was it was going to be more story focused, as in it was going to be more like watching a short film where a song was just playing in the background.
So filming Anencephaly was almost a polar opposite to shooting Skin Show. In Skin Show, we had a large warehouse, we had a lot of free-flowing movement, and in Anencephaly, it was very tight quarters, it was very tight shots that had a very significant purpose.
Well, once again, it's my favorite song from Bloodsnake, so I was really excited about that. Plus, I liked the kind of turn that we took on it, where it wasn't as much about the band playing the song as kind of telling a small little mini thriller story.
It came out a lot better than I thought it would, because if you saw where and how we did it, you would think, okay, this is gonna look like some YouTube video done on someone's phone, but it came out looking like a big production video too.
If you look at the EP as a whole, if you look at all the concepts, the consistent theme you'll see is snakes and dolls. Now, I'm terrified of snakes, so we weren't going to do that, but dolls I can do.
Evan usually gives me like a bit of a synopsis of what the video is going to be about, and I usually always listen to the track before we go to shoot. For this music video, you know, I didn't really know what Evan had in store for all this, with the dolls being strung up on piano wire and you know, all the metaphorical imagery with the actors and their costumes, and a lot of fake blood, a lot of practical effects.
It was a lot of arts and crafts. There was, you know, designing the set. There was a lot of, as Evan and I were walking around figuring out which area would be best for what, there's a lot of Randy and Ren doing the newspaper and designing the main room and getting the table ready.
Okay, I absolutely fucking hated filming Anencephaly, because if you've seen the video, I'm in it for a total of 20 seconds maybe, and I spent 12 hours sitting around doing nothing in skin-tight pants that were cutting my circulation off, and just to get up, film for 20 seconds and be done. To sit around for 2 or 3 more hours and do nothing. So, screw making that video, but I mean, it was worth it, I guess.
Whenever we were filming Skin Show, we had a bigger crew than when we were filming Anencephaly, but also Anencephaly in and of itself was a bigger production, in my opinion, because there was more to do, because we had to go into the small house of my sisters. We had to completely tear down and remove everything from one of the rooms, and we had to put up this black fabric across the entire room, then put a table in there after sealing off the entire room, floor, sealing everything. And we had to cover the table in all these props and blood, and then we were done with that room, we had to tear it down. We had to do the same thing to another room. We had to literally take all these dolls and cut them into pieces and then like glue them together in different malformed ways and cover them in blood and string them from the walls. All of this was of course my idea because I hate myself.
It was intense, to say the least. We had to build everything from scratch pretty much. Looked like we were setting up a Dexter kill room for half of it with all the tarps. But I got to kind of channel my old haunted house experience with helping put all the scenes together. You know, I never really liked Barbie dolls anyway, so, you know, cutting them up was a little gratifying.
There's this one particular shot that is very awesome that we managed to get is where Zach throws Evan onto a table, and we had that shot on a gimbal, and we started with a nice close-up on Zach and Evan and almost run backwards as he picks him up in a chokehold, slams him down, and it's just such a rapid and violent shot that it really makes the video, I feel.
Between the two music videos, Anencephaly actually ended up taking longer. We woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning and we were not done filming until past 2 a.m. So if you take into account the drive, the setup, the filming, the taking down, it ended up being close to 15 hours.
So when we wrote the song Anencephaly, we wanted to evoke a very certain emotion. And through the video, it needed to be unrelenting in a sense, and it needed to almost be unsettling because of what the song was actually about. And I think we achieved that in a lot of different ways. The doll maker, which I played, I worked really hard getting it to be a very odd character that didn't seem quite like he was supposed to belong there, but was still inserted.
It was a lot more of a focus on a storyline than it was on the band and kind of a wow factor. I feel like Skin Show was just a lot of very aggressive, in your face, like, you know, this is us, this is, you know, here's some really messed up looking bloody people hanging from the ceiling. Whereas like Anencephaly kind of took more of like a indie kind of short film. We were in it, but we weren't playing our instruments. The focus wasn't on us as much as it was this mysterious character and what's going on with that guy.
It was just extremely DIY. Like everything you saw in that video was either made by the band or we literally had no help other than Andrew filming it.
I know Evan comes from a creative writing background, but I know he doesn't really have a lot of experience in directing films, and it's always interesting to see that from another point of view, from somebody who may not have that direct experience of working with film. But I love how he can articulate his vision of how he wants something to come on screen, come alive, you know, and he is very good with being able to verbally, you know, say, hey, I want this to be like this, and I want you to definitely show this, and, you know, this is what I want the shot to focus on, this is what I want to show here. And that's so refreshing to have in a director, because, you know, not everybody can articulate their thoughts in a way that other people can visualize and be able to turn into a final visual statement.
Pretty much on a fundamental level, everything was different in how we took Anencephaly as opposed to how we took Skin Show. Skin Show was very big, a huge open room with a free-flowing moving camera, not much of a story, so to speak, just the visual metaphors of the suspension and the hooks. Anencephaly was very close quarters, claustrophobic, bloody, in your face, borderline visual horror. So filming those two videos were different, and so that Skin Show was so open and it was so exhausting because we just played the song over and over again, whereas in Anencephaly it was so focused on getting all of the scenes right, from Zach dressing up as the doll maker character and grabbing me by the throat and slinging me onto a table 15 times trying to find the good take, to Rin spending 2 hours just set dressing and ripping dolls apart and cutting a doll open to shove little blood organs down inside of it. Everything about the methodology behind the two videos was different, and it was fun learning how to handle that both times.
The amount of people that worked on Anencephaly was a lot smaller than the crew that worked on Skin Show, and it was a lot more on the band to do everything, which is fine. It was just a bit exhausting. We had a wonderful hair and makeup, Marissa Adamson, who was on top of everything, made sure that we looked our absolute best. And we had Andrew, like a champ. He just films all of our things. I don't think I've heard the man complain before, and we've asked him to do some pretty unsettling stuff, in my opinion.
While writing the EP, each song was written with a particular idea in mind, but I also always had kind of this second side to each song planned. So depending on how you listen to it, you'll interpret it one of two ways. The first way is the, original intended meaning for each song on each specific instance. But there was always in the back of my head this second instance where you were being told a story. So if you listen to Prelude and how that bleeds into Bloodsnake and how it resolves with I Want You, you can actually hear a progression of these characters. You don't know them by name, but you hear the growth and the development as the lyrics kind of tell you the story. So each song has kind of a double meaning. Everything from Bloodsnake having a double meaning of someone being able to take that and apply it to their own life, to this character inside the song reacting to the loss of a loved one. Everything that we've done up to this point, the EP and both singles, has decided to come to a head in the form of a literary interpretation. That literary interpretation being the novella called The Dollhouse. The Dollhouse has to do with that second side of the songs. It is the actual fictional story that I had in the back of my head when I was writing these songs. It's going to be a way for someone to listen to the EP and then read this story that's just an explanation of the metaphor so that someone can better understand what we were trying to get at.
I've always just enjoyed working with Evan. We have a very good relationship, a very free-flowing of ideas relationship. We bounce ideas off each other all the time about how to shoot different things, how different things look, and how to best pull off in a video what the message of the song is. Which at the end of the day is, what we are here for, what I'm here for, because I like to tell stories, and the stories that Arabesque is telling, I feel are worth telling.
So this project as a whole has taken years of our lives, and it's been worth it every step of the way. We have put things out that I am proud of, that I think ask questions that need answers, and I think that it's something that we all deal with. The topic matter of the darkness of self. It's something we all deal with, and it's something that needs light shown on it every now and then, and it's never comfortable. It's always the exact opposite. It's a very uncomfortable feeling to dive into the human psyche in any kind of sense. And I hope that we did it in a way that gave it justice. And I hope you guys look at the Porcelain Serpent saga as a book that you can help to ask questions about yourself. You can use it to explore humanity through the eyes of Arabesque.
I've been through a lot with this band. I met my wife through this band. I broke bones for this band. I broke other people's bones for this band. I've just gotten a lot of cool opportunities. We worked with some really cool people because of this band. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff coming, and if you haven't seen the stuff we've already done, go check that out, because it's only uphill from here.
All I've got to say is this band means a lot to me. It was crazy the way it all happened. Like I mentioned earlier, I lived in New Orleans, or live in New Orleans, so coming all the way to Hattiesburg was a little weird, but it reconnected me with some people. Like Zach and Randy I've known since I was in middle school, but I left Mississippi, and when I went to New Orleans, I lost contact with them for so long, like middle school till, now we're all well, some of us are still in college, but we're all college age, to reconnect and stuff like that. I don't know, it made me happy. It brought people back into my life that I honestly never thought would be back in it. And then I got to meet Evan, who's also become super important in my life, and I love my boyos. They mean the world to me. I'd kill for them. That's not incriminating.
Above all, I'm grateful to have seen the whole Porcelain Serpent saga reach its conclusion. From the time we came up with Prelude to a Funeral to the time we decided we were going to set the release date for the Dollhouse. I'm glad that it was all able to be seen to fruition, and I'm very grateful to Zach, Randy, Vin, Andrew, and everyone else who was involved in making this project a reality. And I'm most excited about all of the things we've been talking about doing after this, and to see where the band goes from here.